Bigfoot is more human than what it is ape, or vice versa, especially more human than ape. Why would you say that a lot of the facial characteristics were more ape-like than what they were human? This is another aerial of Salt Fork State Park.
Please support this channel by subscribing and leaving comments.
This aerial photo here shows you the Newcomerstown substation right here. 15 years ago, this wasn't dug out. They've did this to put houses and stuff in here. This storage tank wasn't here, but the reason this photo is in here, this is one of two of the Newcomerstown substation area. The three boys that claimed to have seen the creature pulling leaves off of a tree and eating them were walking this trail, and then they had come down this path right in here. And right approximately where the red dot is, just around the bend, is where they saw the creature pulling the leaves off the tree. This is the Tuscarawas River, and this is the south side of Newcomerstown. This is a ground view of that, looking over in the direction where that tank is. They walked this trail. It wasn't really as good as it is in this photo. It was just a dirt trail. But they rounded this bend. You might be able to see that this is a bend here. They rounded this bend, and they saw the creature over in this area pulling leaves off the tree and eating them. That was on April 24th, 1984. This aerial view is where I had my first sighting on September 15th of 1985. This property down here wasn't as it is in this photo. There was a two-story house that was standing here at the time. This terrain runs uphill, and then you have this huge area of pines. What we did was, we were out there on a report of a sighting on July 24th of 1985 from a fellow by the name of Floyd Wiley. Floyd told me that he and his brother had been encountering unusual things, such as footprints being discovered in the ground 16 inches in length. A family of dogs, 8 or 9 pups, with 2 or 3 adults that over the process of the summer disappeared. What happened to them, he doesn't know. I don't know, but they just disappeared. All the adult dogs, all the pups, come up missing over the process of the summer. Some chickens and a wild turkey that they had in a pen as pets gradually come up missing over the summer. But in 1985, I'll show you, I believe, a ground view of this. Not a real good one at that. But approximately right here where this dirt area is, and just in this area where the old barn is, I think that's the wrong one. Okay, anyway, where the dirt area was, the creature came down the hill, and it walked towards the chicken pen, and it got to within 35 feet of where I was located. It stopped momentarily and then turned around and walked back away. There was a fellow on the top of the old barn. Now, he wasn't on the roof per se. The top of the barn itself had actually been torn down, rotted away because of age. So the second floor was totally exposed to the weather, and he was up there on a lawn chair. They had also reported hearing sounds, and we were out there on a stakeout. And myself and a fellow named Tom Archer were down by an old pickup truck that was parked there, and Mark was up on top of the barn, and then Floyd Wiley, I thought, was inside of the house. So what happened was, Mark told me that he heard something coming down the hill that sounded like a herd of elephants breaking through the underbrush. And then after a while, this thing walked into the open field, the field of goldenrod, walked towards the chicken pen, stopped for a second, and then turned around and walked away. That's what I saw. And what I saw was approximately 9 foot in height, very light color, probably white. I had a 35mm shin on hanging around my neck with the flash on. Never thought to pick it up and take a picture because I was just like, what is this? You know, these people are reporting seeing this thing, but I'm seeing it in front of me, and that's not possible. They certainly can't be seeing this, but right there it is in front of me. This shot here is part of old mining territory in northern Muskingum, southern Coshocton County. And you can see what the mining has done to the area where they strip mined it, they've reclaimed it. Of course, it's not back to the way that it had been. But in a roundabout way, they are making an effort to reclaim the area. This is another photo of mining territory in northern Muskingum County. This again just shows you the idea of how dense some of the areas are. This is the Columbus and Southern Cool Lands on the ground. This is a marshy area. Virtually every year, every spring, this area floods because of heavy rains. It is highly prone to flooding. It's in the Wills Creek Basin, southern Coshocton, northern Muskingum counties. Interesting report. This was from November of 1996. This fellow here, his name is Brian. He and his wife were leaving home to go into town. He claimed to have seen a creature cross the road and walk down into the area that he is looking into. He claimed it was 7 to 8 foot in height, black in color, and crossed the road, which was approximately 20 foot wide. We measured it out, give or take a few inches. 20 foot wide and 3 steps. And this is another shot. He was coming down this hill, saw the thing come out from this area, cross the road in 3 steps, and then walk down the hill on the other side of the road. November of 1996. This is an aerial view of Salt Fork State Park. That is the lodge, and it's a very nice area if you happen to get into Eastern Ohio, and if you're lucky enough to get a room there at Salt Fork, at the lodge or whatever. It's a very nice area to stay at. It's the second highest visited state park in all of Ohio. There have been countless reports of Bigfoot sightings in the Salt Fork State Park area. There have been footprints discovered as close to this lodge as one of these trails that lead down toward the lake. You can't really see them. You can see a couple of boat docks here. You can't really see how you can there. There's some cabins. They have 50 to 60 cabins that line this area, and hundreds or thousands of people every year visit this area. And the reason I bring that up is back in 1973, right after the park opened, there were a lot of sightings, actually 4 or 5 sightings within a 7-day period. And the majority of those, with the exception of one, was by a visitor to Salt Fork State Park. This was right after the park opened. And the one sighting that was not reported by a visitor, but by a state wildlife official, one of the park rangers, was like this. He was in the main ranger station at Salt Fork. He claimed to be talking back and forth with one of the guys in the trucks, and they were talking about these sightings. In fact, they had just said that there was a sighting that a lady had not too far from the lodge. And he said, yeah, I've talked to the woman. She claims, she saw this thing cross the road. She's pretty scared. Da, 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 da. Oh, and by the way, you might want to be interested in knowing that it is heading in your direction. Well, he wasn't really concerned about that because he thought the lady was probably drinking or whatever, and she hadn't seen what she claimed to have seen. So, approximately 10-15 minutes after the ranger reported to him that the creature was heading in his direction, he had been talking on the radio, had just quit transmitting, and happened to look up out the window. And when he did, he saw this thing looking straight in the window at him. And he claimed that it had a leathery type textured skin. The skin was black in color. The eyes were dark in color. He could see a very plain brow ridge. He could see that the hair stopped just at the brow ridge. The ears on the creature, on the head, were pushed in towards the head itself. The nose was smashed or pushed in towards the face, unlike a human nose, but more like a gorilla nose. The lips, if you remember the collar painting that you saw earlier, with the creature holding the branch, the lips on that appeared to stick out like a gorilla's lips. The ranger at Salt Fork told me that the lips on the creature that he was looking at through the window did the same, appeared to jut out away from the face. He had a very good look at this thing before he unwittingly decided to swing at it. And when he did, his hand went through the pane glass window. And when that happened, he went for immediate medical care at Guernsey Memorial Hospital in Cambridge. He told me on the phone, he said, if the hospital doesn't have a copy of the report, somebody should. He said that he talked to the other state officials for Salt Fork State Park, the rangers, told them what happened. I mean, of course you've got to explain why you smashed out the window on the main ranger station. He was very convincing. In fact, the guy is now a preacher. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but he was very convincing. I do believe that he probably encountered what he said to. Because a lot of the characteristics on the creature that he was looking at through the window, unless you did a lot of book work on the subject, where you actually saw it yourself, where you talked to someone who saw a Sasquatch at close range, a lot of the stuff that he described, you just can't, you couldn't make it up. If a Bigfoot is more human than what it is ape, or vice versa, especially more human than ape, why would you say that a lot of the facial characteristics were more ape-like than what they were human? This is another aerial of Salt Fork State Park. This is looking to the west towards I-77. 77 is just out of the screen here. But you can see the large amount of water and the large amount of acreage that is available for any wild animals. This is highly hunted during turkey season, during deer season. I don't remember the exact numbers of Salt Fork's acreage, but I believe it has approximately 17,000 to 20,000 acres of water and close to 15,000 acres of land. So it is a very large area. Of course, you saw that in the map at the beginning. The shaded in green area was Salt Fork. This is just looking towards off of the walkway that goes to the main lodge. You can see how the rolling hills are in that part of the state. See a little bit of the lake there. Little side note to this, when I was there and taking the photos for my slides presentation, I understood that there were some cops there and some state park rangers. These are their vehicles, and the rumor was going around that some idiot looking for Bigfoot that claimed that Bigfoot was in the Salt Fork State Park area was there, and that's why they were there, was looking for me. Yeah. By the way, Cambridge State Hospital is just down the road, so I can only imagine what their plans were. Another aerial view, this looks towards Hozak's Cave. Hozak's Cave, you can barely see the black spot above the shaking red dot. I have too much caffeine in my system. But Hozak's Cave is right there, and this is the parking lot for Hozak's Cave. A lot of encounters have taken place here. Not only sightings, not only sounds, but footprints. Footprints were discovered on October 1st of 1985. I believe it was right in this area here. They were 10 inches in length, which is not what you would call Sasquatch proportion size tracks. But the only problem with these prints is I am 99% sure that they were not human. And the reason I say that is a lot of the tracks that you see from the Pacific Northwest, where they have the tracks, the toe imprints that run on a straight line like this, and instead of the big toe and then your second toe sticks above the big one, and then three run down to the side there. That's like on a human track. This 10-inch track had the toe imprints that are very characteristic to a lot of the Pacific Northwest tracks. A lot of them that are in John Green and Renee de Hendon and John Binternagle's books. These 10-inch tracks, October 1st of 85, were extremely close to that. They had what you would call a pea pod formation. They didn't vary in size. They were all basically the same size track. This is just a look at Hozak's Cave. It's not really a cave as you would imagine, like Mammoth Caves or Carter Caves in Kentucky. This is just a very large and very dangerous limestone overhang. This from here down to here doesn't look that far, but it's approximately 50 feet. A fellow from Newcomerstown actually fell off of here and survived to tell about it several years ago. He had some really serious injuries for quite a while, but he did survive through it. This area is closed at night. No one is allowed in here at night. So I thought, that leads to another story where back in 1985, myself and 3 or 4 individuals, after hearing about and looking at the tracks down there on October 1st of 85, we decided to go out there at night and stake out the area and see if we could hear anything for ourselves. And 3 or 4 parking spots down from where we parked, there was a truck with the ability to carry coon dogs. Well, the park ranger pulls up to us and says, "You're not out in here after dark." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but we're just, we're not walking back to the cave. We're just sitting here listening to wildlife." "No, you don't understand. You're not allowed in here after dark. It's too dangerous an area." So, well, the sign says the park closes at 11 o'clock to the general public. He said, "You don't understand. You're not allowed in here after dark. You cannot be here." I said, "Well, what about the truck down there with the coon dogs and all that? I know they're up on the hill. Maybe coon hunting. I've heard the dogs. Are they allowed in here after dark?" "Oh, yeah." I said, "Why is that?" "Well, they're hunting." "Okay." He said, "What are you doing here anyway?" And I said, "Well, we've had reports of some rather large bipedal animals being in the area that shouldn't be, and we thought we'd check out the area and see if we could find or encounter anything for ourselves." He said, "You mean like Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, there is a full moon tonight." I said, "Well, have a good one. See you later." So that's the way that particular ranger took it. Bigfoot hunters aren't allowed in the area after dark, but coon hunters that could fall off the edge of this cave, no problem. That's another shot of the cave. This is the parking lot that you saw from the air, and if you go up this trail to the right, that takes you to Hozak. It's only a couple of 100 yards, maybe 250 at the most, away from the parking lot. The reason this slide is in here is back in August of 1992, here's another good case for you that you're not allowed in here after dark. A certain researcher from Northeast Ohio, whom I will not name, but it was not Mark Francis, was in this area with a group of researchers. And when he was in there, he had 3 or 4 other people there, and he decided to take off to go to a different part of the park. This was at night in August of '92. Not too long after he left, one of his members, a fellow by the name of Steve, claims to have seen a creature cross the road from the left to the right and head up into the woodlands. If his sighting is authentic, it just adds another one to the long list of sightings that have been recorded from the Salt Fork State Park area. Down here, I should have showed you this on the aerial, but down here just off to the left, there were 2 consecutive years back in the early, make that the late 1970s, I believe it was 77 and 78. A father and son were fishing 2 years in a row. And they claim to have seen on 2 consecutive years a female Sasquatch standing on the woods, on the hill, throwing stones at them. And this was 2 years in a row. Now, I personally did not talk to the witnesses, but one of my study group members did. A fellow named Joe Turner talked to the witnesses, and he knows the father real well, and he doesn't think that the guy's making up the story. But 2 consecutive years during the same time period, a female Sasquatch was standing on that bank, throwing stones towards these fishermen. This is an area in Guernsey County near a community called Bird's Run. It was in here on July 9th of 1996 that a woman by the name of Debbie and her husband were on their way into town to pick up their daughter from a softball game. And they were driving down this road from left to right, and as they rounded this bend and headed toward this straight stretch, Debbie saw a creature right in this area walk across the road, up the bank, which is very steep, and into the woodlands. And that was at about 3:30 in the afternoon, right after a thunderstorm had rolled through that area. And she claimed the thing was dark brown, and through a process of estimation, we came to the conclusion that what she saw was approximately 8 foot in height. Now, they hadn't gone to the area to look around, before they called me. I mean, they were driving through, she saw what she told her husband, they continued to drive, picked their daughter up and went home. And after they did that, they called the New Cumberstown Police Department, not because New Cumberstown is close, but they wanted to find out who the guy was that did the Bigfoot research. So the police department told him, gave him my number, she called me. I believe I was out there approximately no more than 2 to 3 hours after the sighting had taken place. And on the side of this bank where this creature stepped up was a very large imprint in the bank, evidently where this thing had stepped to get up the bank. And if I remember correctly from measuring that out, it was approximately 16 inches in length. Do I believe Debbie saw what she saw? Absolutely. She has spoke at my meeting on an occasion to tell about her encounter, and she was very convincing. I have no doubt at all that she saw what she said she saw. Just another reported sighting from Guernsey County, Ohio. Through the 3 main counties that I investigated, as I said earlier, Guernsey, Tuscarawas, and Coshocton. Coshocton County has the highest number of sightings reported by far. As of May of 1993, obviously I haven't updated that number for a while, but in May of 93 there were a total reported 79 sightings just in that one county in the state. Since then that number has probably ballooned to over 100. This is another area where we've done a considerable amount of research. This is in Coshocton County. This is the Woodbury Wildlife Area. This gives you an idea of how dense some of the woodlands are. We've nicknamed certain areas, certain watermarks or landmarks to make future reference to for doing research. This is what we call Sasquatch Lake, and this is what we call Piney Lake. Now, a lot of people ask me, where do you think these creatures travel? How do you think they get around from one spot to the next? If the woodlands are so dense, why would they bother going through the woods? And I don't know how the woodlands are here in Maryland or southeast Pennsylvania, but I can tell you that in eastern Ohio, we are faced with mortifloral rose bushes like crazy. You can't walk inside the woodlands, inside the wood line, without encountering these thorn bushes. Is there a lot of that around here, or is it non-existent?
They're considered a noxious weed,
Yeah.
and they have to be destroyed.
Yeah. These are nasty. So we've got a lot of those in that part of the state. But this is the Woodbury Wildlife Area. It probably covers between 20 and 25,000 acres. Now earlier you heard me make reference to the Willis Creek Basin. The Willis Creek area, Columbus and Southern Cool Lands. Willis Creek is a highly floodable creek every year. And the Columbus and Southern Cool Lands, I'm going by memory, which is not that great nowadays, but the Columbus and Southern Cool Lands, I believe, has between 15 and 20,000 acres. So between Columbus and Southern, Woodbury area, Salt Fork State Park, you see anywhere between 50 and 75,000 acres of land that is open to the general public and is suitable for a Sasquatch or any other wild animal to exist. This is territory that is not owned by you and me, property owners, individually. This is territory that is owned by the state, and it's open to the general public. And there have been a lot of reports of sightings in this area. There was a reported sighting right in here. A woman was fishing in this area. She heard something walking down this trail, thought it was another fisherman or possibly a hunter. Heard it again a few seconds later, turned around, looked, and one of these creatures was walking down the trail, heading toward the woodlands. The idea is this. The idea is not that Bigfoot roams every square mile of land in Ohio. And it's not behind every multiflora rose bush, and it's not behind every, as a Michigan researcher said one time, it's not behind every pineapple tree in Ohio. There's not pineapple trees in Ohio, by the way. But the reports are there. A lot of the eyewitnesses seem credible. I've had eyewitnesses tell me they've seen a Bigfoot, and I've swept it under the rug for one reason or another. It just didn't seem right. They didn't seem to be telling the same story at a later date. So I'm convinced, relatively, that Sasquatch is in the Buckeye State. Now, a little bit of extra slides here to the Pacific Northwest. This is a Bigfoot that was captured and stuffed by a fellow by the name of Larry Lund. Actually, it's a wooden cutout. I'm sure you knew that. A guy by the name of Rob Butler from Milwaukee, Oregon, does drawings. In fact, the drawing on the cover of our program this year and on the T-shirt that Mark has on was done by Rob Butler from Milwaukee, Oregon. Sasquatch Artworks. He also does large cutouts, and this is an 8-foot cutout. And this was in Larry's garden, Larry Lund's garden at Vancouver, Washington, back in 1997 when we visited. The Pacific Northwest is your quote-unquote traditional Sasquatch territory. That's true. And John Green, that I made reference to earlier, lives in Harrison Hot Springs. I visited he and his wife, June, at their residence back in 1997. Harrison Hot Springs, they do what Newcomers Town should do annually with the annual Bigfoot Conference. They should take it and run with it. It's a great tourist thing. You will get a lot of people in there. The conference this year was an example of that, 225 people. Harrison Hot Springs has done that. They proclaim that area is Sasquatch country. They have also even gone to the extent to make a Bigfoot campgrounds. So, you know, it's really accepted in the Pacific Northwest. The state of Ohio, different story. I don't think they really accept it. There's so many stories from Ohio. I could stand here and talk all day, but I won't. Matter of fact, I'm not supposed to. But there are a lot of reports from Ohio. A lot of the terrain is there. And close it out with a fairly scenic slide of a snowstorm. Actually, on the way back to Seattle's airport in 1997, this was Mount Baker. We stopped there just as a side stop because we had a full day before we caught our flight back home. So that does it for the slide presentation. If somebody can bring the lights up, I'll tell you about a few other things here. As I was saying, one of the biggest things for the Tri-State Bigfoot Study Group now is the annual Bigfoot Conference. That's held annually in Newcomers Town. And next year it'll be on April 7th, 2001. As I said, I have no speakers at this time scheduled to speak at the conference. But there will probably be 3, 4, or 5 speakers. I'll have to get together with some people and this summer, later this summer in the fall, and see what I can do about lining some people up. I've always made it a goal to try and get a fellow by the name of Bob Gimlin, who was with Roger Patterson when he filmed The Creature in 1967 in Bluff Creek. Try to get Bob Gimlin in here and speak, but I don't think he's likely to do that. John Green and others tell me that he doesn't do TV interviews anymore, he doesn't do radio, he doesn't do anything of that sort. So even with luring the airline ticket, the motel stay, etc. under his nose, I don't think he would do it. Although stranger things have happened, I guess. A few products that I have available that are here today. The Ohio Sasquatch recordings. A lot of you hear about sounds that are recorded, not only in Ohio but other parts of North America. This contains 3 recordings that I personally have taken in the woodlands of eastern Ohio. The most interesting that I took was on September 15th of 1991. And the sound that came out of the woods that day was like a mournful cry. It was just 3 or 4 different pitches that came out of the woods. And I've let a lot of people listen to that sound. I've let a lot of wildlife experts listen to it. No one has yet been able to identify positively what the sound is there. Another sound, many of you may have seen this on the internet, is a recording called the Talker Tape. A fellow by the name of Richard LaMonica from Akron, Ohio, was on a stakeout, and I believe in Guernsey County back in 1993, I'm willing to say, or 94. I believe it was 94. And he was waiting for his other research partner to meet up with him at a location. He had a micro cassette recorder on one side of his van, and on the other side he had a standard size cassette recorder. And what he did was he started those recording, and then he fell asleep. He's a truck driver and he had a long day. So he fell asleep, and when he went to review the tapes the following day, he heard this unusual talking type sound on his tapes. And so what he graciously did after I inquired with him was allowed me to put the talker tape on the CD, and his story is on this CD as to how he got there, what he was doing there, the chain of events that led up to the recording taking place. That's available in the book room. And then the monthly Bigfoot report comes out on a monthly basis, although those of you who subscribe know that the April issue has yet to surface, so there will be an April-May combined issue. The reason being is I was extremely busy with the conference in April. I'm sure Phyllis can attest to how busy it is getting things organized. But the April-May issue will come out within the next week. It'll have a considerable amount of material in it. Some sightings from 1999, the footprint discovery of last weekend that I told you about. We also ran across the the majority of the sightings, it was a misconception, I believe, and it still is today, but the majority of the sightings have an unusual smell associated with them. I don't think that's true. In fact, the minority of sightings from Ohio have a smell with them, probably less than 25%. And a lot of the times, the smells that I have people tell me that they encounter were like a sulfur smell, rotten eggs, a wet, musty dog, a dead animal smell, something on those lines. But then looking at it on a scientific view, so to speak, or a cryptozoological view, is, all right, you saw a Sasquatch, and then you smelled a dead animal smell. How do you know that the dead animal smell came from the Sasquatch? Good question, right? So, but of course, if you have the smell of the dead animal that is there during the same time the Sasquatch is there, and then the Sasquatch leaves, and then the dead animal smell leaves, obviously, that's how.
With all the multifloral roses that you described in the underbrush, it would seem to us that a hairy biped would leave a lot of hair sample trace evidence for a researcher to find. Why the apparent dearth of evidence?
It would appear that way to me too. We've looked at a whole lot of multifloral bushes. I suppose the only fairly decent answer I could give you on that is that the hair may not stick around long enough, so to speak, on the bushes. It depends on weather conditions. Again, I guess you could use the saying it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. In that particular case, if you have hair snagged on a tree or on floral bushes or whatever, I guess you would have to be there at the right time and looking at the right square inch of terrain to find them. Now, if you had a sighting, for an example, if you had a sighting of a creature that crossed the road, walked up into a whole bunch of bushes that had the thorns on them, and then into the forest, if you got that report quick enough, you could look and see if you could find any hair samples on those objects that have brushed by. But if you don't get the report fast enough, it's really impossible to find them.
You mentioned something about the Delaware Indians and the one line from them, but how widespread is the Bigfoot stories with the Native Americans, and is it all over the country, or is it even like Mexico, South America?
It's all over North America, Canada, and Pacific Northwest of the United States, and then even in North Dakota, South Dakota, over towards Ohio. I'm not real sure what the Indian stories are in this part of the country, but I do know that it's widespread.
Is there any pictographic evidence of that, like raw cave drawings?
Yeah, there is. One of the best cases for that are the totem poles in the Pacific Northwest. There is one totem pole that
If you're enjoying all this rare and unique content, please show your support by subscribing and leaving comments.